Fallout is awesome. But what truly brings this world to life isn't as much what we do know to be true, but rather what we don't know. And yes, I'm talking about conspiracy theories. From Vault-Tec starting the war, to Tamriel being the future of the Fallout world. But today I want to talk about one of my all-time favorites. No-Bark Noonan is the Chosen One. Now I'm sure many of you have already heard this, but after taking the red pill and putting on my investigator hat, I followed the trail of this rabbit hole of Wonderland and I managed to discover something that, well, may change everything. But before we get into all that, let's just go over the basics. The Chosen One is the protagonist from Fallout 2, a descendant of the Vault Dweller from Fallout 1, which is important for later, so remember that. And he's been chosen to go out and find a Garden of Eden creation kit, also known as a Gek. And he basically saves his tribe in Arroyo and everyone lives happily ever after. But there are some that believe the Chosen One actually left Arroyo later in life and made his way south to New Vegas, where he spends his days in the town of Novak as none other than this guy, No-Bark Noonan. Now it's important to understand that New Vegas does take place roughly 40 years after the events of Fallout 2, so the Chosen One should be around 60 years old. Now what truly set this theory in motion wasn't so much No-Bark himself, but was something located just south of town, our first piece of evidence if you will, the wrecked highwayman. Now for those who don't know, in Fallout 2 you could get your hands on a highwayman, and this was a big deal for anyone who played it because it increased your map travel speed, which was awesome. Now you may be wondering, well, how do we know this is even a reference to Fallout 2? I mean, it could just be some random car. I'm sure there are plenty of highwaymen around, which is fair. So the first clue would be the fact that it's a marked location on the map. I mean, if you know, you know. There's nothing to do here other than see this car. Second would be the microfusion cells you find in the trunk, as these are what powered the car in Fallout 2. And third, the smoking gun, really, is that once you enter the vicinity of the car, this song from Fallout 2 plays. Now this is the only time this song is played in the game, as far as I know, and it's a clear indicator that this car is a direct reference to Fallout 2. Check. Now if we investigate the wreck further, we can see that it was most likely heading north on 95, lost control coming around this turn, smashed through the barrier, and ended up in a radioactive pit of goo. So the real question is, who did the car belong to? So let's head north a bit and we come across this town, Novak. Known for the big dinosaur out front, Novak is a small hotel community with a few interesting characters, and after questioning the town folk, we get a pretty good idea that there's a man here named No-Bark Noonan who is a little unhinged, and it becomes clear that everyone is just dying to tell us about him, which is kind of strange. But in regards to the highwayman, there's another fella here named Bruce Isaac who actually did come from New Reno, which is also a place in Fallout 2. But to save on some time, long story short, the car doesn't belong to Bruce, as he's working on his motorcycle in his room, and the car has obviously been sitting for quite a while. But it does tell us that people heading from up north to New Vegas, for some reason, come from the south, traveling north on 95. This is important. So let's just set the highwaymen into evidence for now and move on to our next clue. That gun. Located in the Novak gift shop, that gun is a heavily modified pared down 223 pistol, and is yet another direct reference to the old school Fallout games. And beside the fact it's the only pistol of its kind in the base game, Joshua Sawyer even proclaimed the name is derived from the fact that many players referred to the 223 in Fallout 2 as that gun. So it's obviously special, and due to its close proximity to the wrecked highwayman, I'd say we're onto something here. So we have the wrecked highwayman and that gun, all in the vicinity of Novak. Now what better place to go to next than to the town conspiracy theorist? I mean, right? He's obviously there for a reason. So let's finally meet Mr. No-Bark Noonan and get to the bottom of this. Upon our first interaction, it is clear that No-Bark does seem a bit out there, and the explanation is that he's been stung in the head by rat scorpions, which could be a viable reason he has forgotten many of his past achievements. He also tells us that he learned a spell from a cave rat, which will show your true form, which, yeah, sounds pretty crazy, but it just so happens there's a talking cave rat in Fallout 2 named the Brain. Could this be a reference to their encounter? And when you question him about Benny, he mentions he saw him running from aliens that can only see in black and white checkers. Now, I've done a short about Fallout aliens in the past, more specifically Wanamingos. Their game file name is Alien, and they're extremely rare in the game. And they also have very poor vision, like, seriously, no eyes. Now, that about wraps up what we find through interacting with No-Bark, but before I get into what I personally found, I want to go over a couple other details pointed out by players. Inside No-Bark's shack, we find a bunch of propaganda posters, which some believe he would have gotten from the oil rig. Another honorable mention is the fact that No-Bark has what appears to be unlimited money. He's the only character in New Vegas that seems to be able to play Caravan no matter how much money he has left. And betting up to 1,000 caps per game, he is much wealthier than he seems to be. But with all of that out of the way, here's what I managed to find after digging around around a little bit, I decided to look into the name Noonan. Now, if they wanted us to look into this guy, which I honestly think they did, then they would definitely use every detail to make a point. So what does Noonan mean? Well, it turns out it means beloved dear, which turns out is Irish, but that's not important. What is important is that you look deeper. The origin of the name means the descendant of the beloved one. Now that's actually pretty interesting on its own, but this is where things get weird. The beloved one is a reference to the original chief of the clan. Now, hold on. Noonan essentially means descendant of the original chief of the clan. Now, remember earlier in the video when I said that the Chosen One is a direct descendant of the Vault Dweller? Well, the Vault Dweller is the original chief of Arroyo, which means the Chosen One is a descendant of the original chief of the clan. And No-Bark Noonan, after everything we've already discussed, just so happens to have a name as specific as this? Coincidence my ass. This is the type of thing you do because you want players to look into this. You wanted players to take a suspicion to this wrecked highwayman. You wanted them to catch the reference of that gun. And you wanted them to get all conspiracy minded and talk to No-Bark and think to themselves, something is just too conspiracist with this guy. Almost as if it's all just a show. And you wanted someone to look into this name and discover what I've just discovered. Now, does this mean No-Bark is 100% confirmed to be the Chosen One? No, of course not. But I will say this. Based on everything I've seen, especially now, it is most certainly possible that No-Bark Noonan is in fact the Chosen One. Alright guys, that about wraps it up, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. Feel free to subscribe if you'd like to see more, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.